Reality is not what it seems. It is not a static backdrop to our lives, nor a machine that responds predictably to action and reaction. Rather, it is a mirror, a vast reflective field responding not to what we do, but to the frequency we are. This may sound abstract at first, but science and philosophy alike now converge on this truth. Beneath what we call reality is an energetic architecture, a vibrational order that shapes events, health, relationships, and even the passage of time itself. Let us begin with a simple truth observable to anyone who has lived long enough to reflect. Two people can do the same thing with the same intention and get vastly different results. One farmer plants a field and sees abundance. Another, with the same seed and soil, meets drought or blight. One person enters a room and is instantly welcomed. Another is met with silence. Why? The answer is not just in actions or even intentions, but in the coherence of their internal state. This is not mysticism. In fact, the field of quantum biology now reveals that the body, and by extension the mind and spirit, emits electromagnetic signals measurable down to the smallest cellular oscillations. The HeartMath Institute, for instance, has shown that the heart produces a magnetic field that extends up to several feet beyond the body, and this field changes dramatically depending on emotional and cognitive states. When a person is in a state of inner coherence, gratitude, clarity, peace, their heart rhythm becomes harmonized, and this resonance alters not only their own physiological functioning, but also the environment around them. We are, each of us, transmitting at every moment. But unlike radio signals that rely on volume or power, the signal of your being is not measured by how hard you try or how loud your voice may be. It is measured in purity, in clarity, in coherence. Think of tuning a violin. A note that is even slightly off causes dissonance. But when the strings are in tune, the instrument sings. Your life is the same. You are an instrument, and reality is not your audience, it is your duet partner. When your inner frequency is in tune, the world responds with harmony. When it is not, what comes back is noise, resistance, fragmentation. And yet, most of us were never taught how to tune this internal instrument. We were taught to push harder, think more, fix things from the outside in. But as recent breakthroughs in neuroplasticity and psychophysiology have shown, your thoughts and emotions don't just influence your behavior, they reshape your brain, shift your hormonal patterns, and even alter gene expression. Dr. Joe Dispenza's work with brain scans and heart coherence offers compelling evidence. When people practice entering a state of calm focus and emotional alignment, not only do they experience subjective improvements in their lives, but measurable physiological changes occur: reduced cortisol levels, improved immune response, enhanced neurological function. The implication is powerful. If we want to change our experience of reality, we must first change the signal we are emitting. This means moving from external control to internal coherence. It means slowing down not to do less, but to hear more. Beneath the static of worry, memory, and desire, there is a hum, a low, constant tone that does not shout but endures. This is your original signal. It is not something you create, it is something you remember. And that remembering is not an effort. It is a return. Like standing at the edge of a still lake at sunrise, when all the noise of the world fades and you hear, perhaps for the first time in years, your own inner clarity. This is where science meets soul. Brainwave research now shows that when the mind enters an alpha or theta state, a state of relaxed but alert awareness, the nervous system becomes more receptive to subtle input. This is not just a meditative curiosity. It is a biological gateway to the deeper parts of our consciousness. It is in these states that long-lost memories surface, creative insights flash, and even spontaneous healing has been recorded. The blueprint of your life, stored in what could be described as a vibrational matrix within your consciousness, becomes accessible only when your internal noise quiets. When you are aligned, the information that organizes your reality emerges not as thoughts, but as resonance. Consider this. Have you ever had a moment of peace so deep it felt like you could see clearly for the first time? Perhaps it came after grief had run its course, or during a walk in nature when the wind brushed your skin just so. In that moment, did anything need to be solved? Did you feel behind or broken? Or did you feel like just for that breath everything made sense? Even if you couldn't explain it? That's the signal. That's your original code vibrating through the chaos. And it never stopped playing. You just got busy listening to other frequencies. So what can you do now, in this very life, at this very age? With all the wisdom you've gathered and all the noise you're ready to let go of? You begin by tuning your awareness inward. Not with judgment, but with curiosity. Spend 5 minutes each morning in stillness. Not trying to meditate in the formal sense, but simply sitting with your hand over your heart and noticing your breath. Science tells us that the act of breath awareness alone can begin shifting heart rate variability, which improves emotional regulation and stress resilience. Let this become your tuning practice. Then pay attention to your field. Notice what spaces make you feel heavy and what moments lift your energy without reason. These are not coincidences, they are signals. The world is mirroring your frequency constantly. Begin to trust what you feel in your body, not as superstition, but as data. Your nervous system is more intelligent than any news report or opinion. It is tuned to truth if you allow it. And finally, speak as if your words were tuning forks. Because they are. The sound of your voice carries not just content but intention. Speak gently to yourself. Speak clearly to others. Speak from the version of you that has already remembered who you are. The one beneath all the noise. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are not missing anything. You are simply out of tune. And the great gift of this moment in your life is that you now know how to listen. Not to what is loud, but to what is true. The signal has always been playing. Now finally, it's time to hear it. Imagine for a moment that the core of your body is not just a stack of bones supporting your frame but a finely tuned vertical antenna connecting heaven and earth. This is not just poetic language. In fact, science now confirms what many ancient traditions intuited. The spine is more than structure. It is signal. Beneath the vertebrae, nerves, and muscle fibers, the spinal column serves as the main conduit through which encoded instructions pass from your deeper consciousness into your physical form. Neuroanatomists have shown that the spine is tightly interwoven with the autonomic nervous system, which regulates not only our bodily functions but also emotional responses, energy levels, and the sense of presence we carry. When your spine is aligned, not just physically but vibrationally, your body begins to receive and act on signals with clarity and speed. This is why, in certain moments of grace, like when you feel completely in sync with the world, when decisions come effortlessly, and your body seems to move before your mind catches up, what you are experiencing is the code flowing clearly through your vertical core. Picture this: the spine as a musical instrument, each segment a tuning fork for specific bands of frequency. When these segments are in balance, the melody of your life flows like a symphony. But when distortion occurs through emotional stress, unresolved trauma, or physical tension, these frequencies become scrambled. Chiropractors, somatic therapists, and energy practitioners alike have noticed that spinal misalignment doesn't just lead to pain or stiffness. It often precedes emotional turbulence and cognitive dissonance. In fact, researchers at the University of California, Irvine, found that patients who received spinal adjustments showed significant shifts not only in posture but in heart rate variability and emotional resilience. The spine is a conductor, and the nervous system its orchestra. When even one instrument is off-key, the entire composition becomes chaotic. But you don't need a lab to confirm this. Think of a time when you felt truly grounded. Perhaps it was while standing barefoot in your garden, or during a quiet walk along the coast. When your back felt upright without tension, your breath flowed with ease, and the world around you seemed to respond in kind. That's not nostalgia. That's a glimpse of vertical coherence, where the code, your inner blueprint, is finally being received without interference. This isn't about posture for the sake of appearance. It's about the integrity of the signal being sent through your spine and received by your body. The slightest tilt in the neck or compression in the lower back can distort that signal, not because the bones are misbehaving but because the vibrational line is interrupted. Modern neuroscience tells us that the body doesn't just react to the world. It interprets it. Your nervous system is a translator, converting vibrational information into chemical responses, movement patterns, and emotional states. That sudden heaviness in your chest before entering a room, the inexplicable fatigue after a conversation, or the spontaneous tears you didn't expect. All of these are examples of signal interpretation happening at levels faster than thought. If the signal traveling down your spine is clear, your body responds with precision. If it's fragmented, the body improvises, often by locking muscles, freezing movement, or flooding the system with stress hormones. The late Dr. Candace Pert, a neuroscientist and pharmacologist, famously said, "The body is the subconscious mind." And indeed it is. It holds memories, patterns, and blueprints in muscular and neurological form. So how do we engage this architecture consciously? First, bring your attention to your spine, not to fix or force it into shape, but to feel its line. Begin each day with what I call the vertical scan. Stand or sit upright, close your eyes, and slowly breathe into each section of your spine from tailbone to crown. This is not stretching. This is signal checking. Ask yourself, where does the breath stop? Where does sensation feel muted? These are your static points, not flaws but feedback. Then, as you go through your day, notice your posture in moments of stress or joy. Are you collapsing inward during doubt? Are you arching back when defensive? Your spine tells the truth even when your words do not. Second, simplify your physical environment to support alignment. Arrange your spaces so that movement is smooth and free from clutter. Environmental psychologists have found that a clear space encourages upright posture and better neurological function. Place a chair by a window where you naturally sit taller. Hang artwork at eye level to lift your gaze. These small changes help maintain vibrational symmetry in the spine without conscious effort. Third, engage in movement that is designed to reset the nervous system. Practices like Tai Chi, Qigong, and slow intentional walking have been shown to recalibrate the spine's rhythm with the breath and activate the vagus nerve, which governs our sense of safety and presence. A 2020 study from Harvard Medical School demonstrated that just 10 minutes a day of mindful movement reduced inflammatory markers and improved heart-brain coherence in adults over 60. You do not need to become an athlete. You only need to become a listener, tuning your spine like a living instrument, responding to what it needs to carry the code well. Finally, speak to your body the way you would to an old friend. The spine is not a machine. It is a story. It remembers every time you stood tall in truth or shrank in fear. It holds the imprints of strength, loss, and becoming. When you walk into a room aligned, you do not need to say a word. People feel your presence because your code is no longer interrupted. The alignment of your spine is not about aesthetics or rigidity. It is about coherence. And in coherence, you do not push. You simply arrive. Fully, gently, entirely. So if you want to reclaim your energy, your clarity, your confidence, not through more effort, but through deeper alignment, start with your spine. Feel it. Listen to it. Breathe along its length. Let it become the tuning rod of your life. Because when the signal flows without distortion, you don't need to force the future. You simply live it. Precisely. Peacefully. Now, look around you for just a moment. Look at the room you're sitting in, the objects on your table, the way the light touches the walls, the repetition of certain colors or shapes that show up again and again. To most people, these seem like ordinary details, part of the scenery of life. But if you look closer, with the eyes of both a philosopher and a scientist, you begin to realize something astonishing. Your environment is not random. It is precise. It is a mirror that reflects not just your choices, but your internal frequency. This is not a poetic metaphor. It is a direct, observable phenomenon. The space around you responds to the tone of your inner signal, and it organizes itself accordingly, often in ways so subtle and consistent that they slip beneath the radar of conscious thought. Consider this. Why do certain rooms instantly make you feel heavy, while others lift your mood with no obvious reason? Why do certain patterns keep repeating in your external life, whether it's the kind of people you meet, the timing of unexpected events, or even recurring objects that seem to follow you? These are not coincidences. These are reflections generated by what quantum physicists refer to as field coherence, the capacity of your biofield, your energetic signature, to interact with external space in a structured, measurable way. The work of Dr. William Tiller at Stanford University demonstrates that human intention, when focused and coherent, can measurably alter the properties of physical matter, including the pH of water and even the crystalline structure of materials. If that is true at the molecular level, imagine what your consistent internal vibration is doing to the layout of your daily life. Now, to bring this idea from the lab into your living room, think of your life as a feedback loop. Every time you emit a frequency through your emotions, thoughts, or embodied presence, the environment reads that signal and begins to rearrange itself in kind. If your field is calm, grounded, and coherent, space responds by smoothing out obstacles, opening doors, and generating timely connections. This is why some people seem to always be in the right place at the right time. It is not luck. It is signal clarity. Their mirror field, as I call it, is reflecting back a pattern of internal alignment. But the reverse is also true. When your signal is fragmented, clouded by unresolved emotion, conflicting thoughts, or habitual doubt, your environment reflects this distortion. You may notice objects accumulating in disordered ways, doors that once opened easily beginning to stick, or technology inexplicably malfunctioning around you. These are not just annoyances. They are messages. They are the environment's way of mirroring what you are currently radiating. And this is not superstition. Environmental psychology, a growing field with roots in neuroscience and architecture, has found strong correlations between the arrangement of physical space and psychological well-being. The University of Minnesota's Center for Spirituality and Healing reports that cluttered spaces lead to increased cortisol levels, reduced cognitive clarity, and disrupted sleep patterns in older adults. This is not about minimalism for the sake of trend. It is about maintaining vibrational hygiene, creating a space that resonates with the signal you truly wish to send. So how do we use this knowledge in practice? Begin with simple observation. Take a quiet moment in your day, ideally when the world is not pulling at your attention. Walk slowly through your home as if you were seeing it for the first time. Let your eyes land naturally on what they're drawn to. Notice what feels energizing and what feels heavy. You are not judging, you are sensing. This is field awareness. Then, select one object that feels like it no longer belongs, not because it is ugly or broken, but because its resonance feels off. Remove it. Thank it if you must, but let it go. You've just shifted your mirror field. This single act creates an opening in your environment where new energy can enter. The field will respond. Trust this. You may receive a surprising call, notice a sudden clarity in your thoughts, or simply feel lighter in your body. This is not magic. It is the physics of alignment in motion. Next, begin to pay attention to patterns in your external world. Do you keep encountering the same phrase in books, signs, or conversations? Do certain numbers or symbols show up more than chance would suggest? These are not secret codes from the universe. They are signals from your own field, reflected outward so that you can begin to notice the pattern forming within you. The subconscious mind often speaks in symbols long before language catches up. Carl Jung referred to this as synchronicity, a meaningful coincidence that reveals the hidden architecture of the psyche. But today we can expand that understanding. Your field is broadcasting data. The world around you is the display screen. When you start to see repeated content in your environment, don't overanalyze. Simply ask yourself, what am I emitting that makes this the mirror today? Let the question itself open your awareness, not as a problem to solve, but as a signal to observe. Lastly, curate your environment with intention. You don't need to redesign your home. You need only to align your space with the tone you wish to carry. Place objects where your attention naturally flows, not to fill empty space but to support clarity. Choose items that feel alive with meaning, not just decorative. A seashell that reminds you of calm, a photo that evokes genuine love, a chair placed in the corner that invites presence instead of escape. Let your space become a vibrational ally. This practice is particularly powerful for those over 65 because your nervous system has stored a lifetime of encoded patterns and the environment can either agitate or harmonize those frequencies. Surrounding yourself with intentional, aligned energy is not indulgent. It is a form of self-mastery. The mirror field does not lie. It does not exaggerate. It reflects exactly what you are ready to see. So start where you are. Look gently. Adjust with care. Observe without rush. Your space is speaking. And when you learn to listen, your life will begin to mirror the clarity you carry, not as an effort, but as a natural result of resonance. The environment becomes less a background and more a conversation. And in that dialogue, truth becomes visible. Alignment becomes practical. and the invisible design beneath your everyday world reveals itself, one reflection at a time. Some truths arrive not through study or logic, but in quiet flashes when you're no longer trying to figure life out. They arrive not as information but as sudden inner knowing, and when they come, they often feel less like something new and more like something you always knew but somehow forgot. This process of sudden realization, of remembering something ancient and deeply personal, is not random. It is the unfolding of what I call the time-locked layer of the mind, a level of consciousness that stores wisdom not by date or detail but by resonance. Your mind is not just a container for memories or a theater for thought. It is an architecturally precise system that protects certain truths until you are internally ready to receive them. This may sound abstract, but neuroscience is beginning to support this ancient idea. Dr. Andrew Newberg, a pioneer in neurotheology, has studied how spiritual insight and mystical experience often come not through analysis but through sudden shifts in brain wave patterns, particularly in the theta range, associated with memory retrieval and deep intuition. These moments, often reported by those in later stages of life, emerge when the brain enters a rhythm of coherence, not when it's trying hard to understand, but when it becomes quiet enough to allow stored patterns to rise into awareness. You may have noticed this yourself. Perhaps a quote you heard years ago suddenly clicks as if it had been waiting for this very moment. Or a memory you hadn't thought about in decades resurfaces with clarity and emotional charge, revealing a layer of meaning you could not see before. What changed? Not the memory, but your internal frequency. You became a match for the information that had been sealed away. The philosopher Plotinus suggested that the soul carries within it all knowledge, but that it only becomes accessible when the soul aligns with the deeper self. In modern terms, this means that your internal resonance acts like a key. When the tone of your being shifts through growth, stillness, or integration, previously inaccessible knowledge becomes available, often in the form of sudden clarity. This is not just philosophy. Recent studies in the field of epigenetics, such as those by Dr. Bruce Lipton, show that our beliefs and inner emotional states can switch genetic expressions on and off, including those tied to memory and learning. In other words, when your internal environment changes, the system responds not by adding new content, but by unlocking what was already stored within you. This time-locked memory system is incredibly wise. It does not release information because you want it. It releases it because you are finally in a state that can hold it without distortion. If it came too early, you might have misunderstood it, misused it, or been overwhelmed by it. This is why overthinking often becomes an obstacle to insight. When we push too hard to understand something or try to force emotional clarity, we create mental static that blocks the deeper signal from coming through. This is why some of your most profound realizations have likely come during a walk, a shower, or while gardening, not when you were trying to solve something, but when you were simply present. The mind's deeper vault only opens when the nervous system feels safe, when the breath slows, and when attention moves inward without agenda. Dr. Dan Siegel's research on the window of tolerance shows that the brain becomes most receptive to transformation not during high-intensity effort but during states of regulated calm. It is in these windows that dormant insight finds a clear path to the surface. So how do we practically work with this? First, embrace stillness not as inactivity but as an invitation. Create small moments each day where you do not consume information or try to solve anything. Sit with a cup of tea near the window. Listen to the rhythm of your breath or the song of a bird. Let your mind rest, not in boredom but in openness. These spaces are like soft soil where long-buried seeds of insight can begin to grow. Second, pay attention to what repeats internally. If a certain phrase, image, or memory keeps returning, don't dismiss it as coincidence. That's often the sign that a time-locked packet is surfacing not through force but through gentle resonance. Write it down, not to analyze, but to witness. Let it speak without interruption. You don't have to interpret it immediately. Just honor that it arrived. Third, recognize that wisdom is rarely dramatic. Most truths that truly matter come with quiet authority. They don't announce themselves. They feel like the final piece of a puzzle that suddenly makes the whole picture visible. When this happens, let the insight land fully before you move. Take a breath. Let your body feel the shift. The nervous system stores understanding more effectively when paired with sensory awareness, which is why movement-based memory techniques such as walking meditation are now used in dementia care and stroke rehabilitation. You are not just remembering with your brain. You are resonating with your entire system. And finally, trust your timing. If something feels foggy or just out of reach, it's not because you are failing. It's because the lock has not yet opened. Not every answer is meant to come now. Some are calibrated to who you are becoming, not who you've been. So walk with curiosity rather than urgency. Let your life's rhythm be the key that slowly fits the vault. The time-locked layer of your mind is not hiding anything from you. It is protecting the architecture of your unfolding. When you are ready, the lock opens. And what emerges will not feel like discovery. It will feel like coming home. Your voice is not just sound. It is architecture. Every time you speak, you are not simply expressing thoughts or opinions. You are broadcasting a vibrational pattern that carries the shape of your internal world into the external one. This is not merely metaphor. Scientific studies now show that your voice holds measurable data beyond language: frequency, rhythm, tone, and amplitude, all of which influence the way your message is received not only by people but by space itself. The work of Dr. Alfred Tomatis, a pioneer in auditory neuroscience, revealed decades ago that the human voice can directly influence the health and function of the brain, not just of the speaker but also the listener. His research showed that the quality of one's voice reflected the state of one's nervous system and that healing could begin by restoring vocal resonance. Similarly, recent studies in sound therapy and vibroacoustic science have confirmed that coherent vocal tones can regulate heart rate, improve immune response, and even reduce inflammation in aging adults. What you say matters, yes, but how you say it, the energy beneath the words, is what determines whether your speech becomes noise or transmission. Think for a moment about a time someone spoke to you with such clarity and calm that their words stayed with you long after the conversation ended. It wasn't their vocabulary that mattered most. It was the quality of their presence embedded in their voice. You felt them before you understood them. That is the power of an aligned voice. Now imagine speaking that way yourself, not for performance but as a natural result of inner coherence. When your voice rises from a stable center, from a place of genuine alignment, it carries a vibrational clarity that reorganizes the space it enters. People feel safer. Rooms quiet. Conversations deepen. This isn't charisma, it's coherence. And the good news is, this capacity is not a gift given to some and withheld from others. It is a biological and spiritual function of the human system. As your inner signal becomes more unified, your voice naturally becomes a carrier of that unity. This has been echoed across centuries of spiritual traditions. In the Psalms, the voice is a creative force. In Eastern philosophy, the spoken mantra is a vibrational bridge between form and formlessness. And in modern physics, sound is energy moving through form with direction and force. All of these point to one conclusion. When you speak from clarity, your voice does not just communicate, it creates. This insight becomes particularly powerful later in life. By the time we reach our 60s and beyond, our voices carry not only sound but decades of encoded memory. Every heartbreak, every triumph, every silence lives somewhere in your tone. And because of that, the opportunity to realign becomes even more profound. You are no longer learning to find your voice. You are learning to clear it, to let it emerge free of old tension, free of false stories, and filled with the quiet authority of lived experience. One of the simplest ways to begin this process is to slow down your speech, not artificially, but naturally, by allowing space between your words. Research from the University of California, Davis, shows that slowing speech increases parasympathetic nervous activity, which helps regulate blood pressure and lowers cortisol. But beyond physiology, this space allows the resonance of your inner alignment to be felt. Think of your words as stones dropped gently into water. When you rush them, the ripples crash into each other. When you place them with care, the surface becomes a mirror. Try this for yourself. Begin each morning by speaking one sentence aloud that reflects the tone you wish to carry into the day. Not a forced affirmation, but a sentence that feels true right now. Perhaps something like, "Today, I choose to move with grace," or, "I am enough as I am." Say it slowly without rushing. Let the vibration of your own voice reach your body. Then pause and notice how it feels. This practice is not about convincing your mind. It's about entraining your nervous system to a frequency of truth. Your cells are listening. So is your field. You will notice over time that as your tone becomes more consistent, your relationships shift. People respond more to your presence and less to your arguments. Opportunities open not because you try harder, but because the sound of your signal matches what life is already moving toward. It is also important to recognize when your voice is misaligned. You've felt it before, moments when you speak and immediately sense that your words are coming from fear, defensiveness, or old habits. The words may be kind, but the tone betrays tension. This is not failure. It is feedback. When this happens, don't shame yourself. Pause. Take a breath. Realign. The nervous system recalibrates within seconds if given stillness. Then try again, even if it's just one word spoken with full presence. A whisper of truth is more powerful than a shout of confusion. For those who feel their voice has been silenced or underused, let me say this clearly. It is never too late to reclaim the power of your sound. In fact, many people find that their most potent voice emerges later in life, when the performance of youth fades and what remains is essence. Begin where you are. Speak to a plant. Speak to your reflection. Speak to the morning air. Let your voice reintroduce itself to the world, not with pressure but with honesty. The world does not need perfect words. It needs clean signals. And your voice, when aligned, becomes a tuning fork that brings harmony to the places it touches. So today, choose to speak less from reaction and more from resonance. Let your voice become the bridge between the inner code of who you are and the external life you are shaping. Speak with care, not caution. Speak with truth, not performance. And trust that when your voice is aligned with the tone of your being, reality cannot help but respond. Not because it hears your words, but because it feels your signal.